Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and welcome to our episode of Monday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question today comes from Andy, and it is, when do you think Ubisoft is going to fix the loads of glitches in Rainbow Six Siege? It's getting to be a bit much. Well, I am right there with you that this season has felt a bit off. With all the problems and glitches that have occurred, especially lately, it is a bit discouraging. And while sadly we don't have an exact timeline of when Ubisoft is going to be able to resolve these problems, what gives me hope is that they are being very transparent. A couple of days ago, they released an outline of what they're working on right now, mainly the Clash IQ and Shield glitch, and they've been able to recreate the problem. The reason why this is exciting is that a lot of times when developers are able to pinpoint why something is happening, then that obviously means that they're one step closer to actually solving the issue. If you're not able to actually recreate why a glitch is happening, that makes it much more difficult to actually solve the problem. That's why you have legacy bugs in like the Battlefield franchise, for example. And so hopefully this means that they are getting close to reintroducing Clash and these two other gadgets back into the game. What's also really exciting though is they've talked about some other bugs and glitches that they're trying to resolve, mainly the sound problem. You guys may have noticed that the sound this season has felt a bit off. Someone will open up a barricade directly next to you and you won't even hear it being opened. Someone will be running down the hallway a few feet away and you won't hear the shuffling of their feet. This results in a lot of moments where you get taken out seemingly out of nowhere, which of course isn't really the most desirable experience. Another thing that they're working on is the lean on camera replay. You guys may have noticed once again this season that if you get taken out and you were leaning while doing so, when you watch back on the camera replay, a lot of times they're not even really aiming at you. It doesn't even seem like they should have hit you, but obviously you got taken out. And so to have this kind of discrepancy where it's on your end, you're trying to figure out how did they actually win that engagement, and then you watch it back and it doesn't even seem like they hit you, it's because of this camera problem, and so I'm hopeful that they're going to be able to fix this as well. And so all in all, I'm really happy that Ubisoft is being transparent here, and while once again, we don't have an exact timeline on when everything is going to be fixed, it is nice to know that they are aware of the issues and taking the necessary steps to solve them as soon as possible. The next question comes from Jake, and it is, I was wondering what your thoughts on what the difficulty section in the new operator loadout is. Haven't seen much about it. Well, I imagine it's really just Ubisoft trying to give newer players more information as to how difficult a new character is, or really just all of the operators in the game. For most people that have been playing for a really long time now, this probably isn't necessary, but if you're brand new to Rainbow Six Siege, having a little icon that lets you know, oh, this is a 1 difficulty, 2, or 3, kind of gives you a better idea if this is something that you should attempt for your very first time. I think most people would agree that Ash is a lot easier to use than someone like Valkyrie. Valkyrie requires an extensive amount of time in Rainbow Six Siege, not only just to simply learn the layout of the maps and knowing where the offensive team is going to be coming from, but also where to position your cameras in the appropriate position. There are so many different areas and ways that you can use Valkyrie, and then the cherry on top, her weapon doesn't hit very hard, and so you also pretty much need to get headshots if you want to be successful. When you compare the difficulty of Valkyrie to someone like Ash, it's pretty much no-brainer at that point. Like, she is just simply a harder operator to use. And so to have this little icon that says, yeah, she's much more challenging for someone that's new to the game, that could be very valuable information. And so I really just think that's what it comes down to. I don't think that this is changing the game in the meaningful way, and a lot of times people are going to disagree with this icon in general. Some people are going to think that one operator is easier or more difficult to use compared to another player, and that's okay. Everything is subjective here, but at the end of the day, I think that's not really what the point is. It's just so that Ubisoft can convey that information for anyone that's trying to get involved, and I think that's a good thing. Rainbow Six Siege is a difficult game for newer players to actually get started, and to have these little tools at their disposal, I think could go a long way. The next question comes from Nathan, and it is, have you had a chance to play Rage 2, and if so, what are your thoughts on it? I had a lot of fun with Rage 2. even though it did have some problems. And I think it just came down to the gameplay itself. When you're able to unlock most of the weapons and abilities, you basically turn into a superhero, even at the harder difficulties. When you kind of figure out how you're supposed to move, and it is a very fast-paced game. If you play this like every other FPS out there, where you find a wall and you just try to take people out from a distance, you're probably not gonna have that much fun. But as soon as you embrace that movement and you use the abilities to your advantage, it's incredible. It really feels like Doom 2016. You're slamming into the ground, you're pushing people all over the place, you're comboing with all your different weapons, you're pulling people in and then throwing nades at them. It's an incredible amount of fun. The thing is, though, is that I feel like the game is bogged down by the fact that they made it open world. This did not need to be an open world experience. Yes, it does allow you to explore, but it doesn't really feel like there's a lot to explore in Rage 2. It's a lot of cookie cutter, just very plain map design because they went with that direction. I feel like this was a more linear experience, like Doom 2016, for example. It would have been much more enjoyable. I don't know why the developers felt like it would be fun to stop the fast-paced action with the slow progress of moving from point A to point B. Or when you actually do take out one of these camps, you then have to scavenge around, basically like an Easter egg hunt, trying to find these pink boxes or to take out fuel containers. I literally had a moment where I could not find 2 fuel containers to complete the mission because they were hidden away in some sort of door. And so I feel like the game kind of conflicts with itself. It wants to be fast-paced, it just wants to have that constant action, but at the same time, they added in these really bizarre design decisions to slow you down for whatever reason. And so all in all, while I do recommend that you take a look at Rage 2, you might want to wait on a discount because of these problems. It's a good game. It's not really just a masterpiece, but of course that is just my 2 cents. The next question comes from Chris, and it is, what do you think of an operator for Siege that had a more common gadget instead of some hyper-advanced drone? Well, I definitely see where you're coming from on this one. A lot of people have been contributing some of the issues that we've been experiencing in Siege, like operator balance, for example, on the fact that a lot of the new operators have really advanced or technologically futuristic gadgets. If we look back at year 1 or the original operators, things were much more simplistic. Sledge, for example, literally just has a hammer that allows him to get through walls. Rook places down armor for his entire team to use. Doc just has a way to heal people. Their gadgets, just in the grand scheme of things, are simplistic in nature. We look to where we are today, we have a guy that now scans footprints and pings people's locations. We, of course, like you said, have an advanced drone in the air that is able to ping everyone's location if they move. These are getting more and more complicated. The thing is, though, is that if we continue to want to have new operators and we want the game to grow and expand every single season, I feel like it's kind of unavoidable at this point. I don't think they've completely exhausted more of these simplistic gadgets that they could introduce. We've kind of talked about some of those in previous Sunday mailboxes, but at the end of the day, there's only so many ways you can reinforce or get through a wall in a simplistic manner. They could add another sledge that isn't Sledge, but why in the world would you do that? Because there's already Sledge. They have to think about how they're going to impact the game in a meaningful way, and that usually requires them to think out the box and go in more of this futuristic direction. I don't think, for example, introducing Warden, who is able to see through smoke or eliminate the flashbang effect, is too unreasonable. Is it futuristic? Absolutely, but I don't think it's going to necessarily have a negative impact overall. And so all in all, while I definitely do agree with you that things have gotten more complicated in the gadget departments, as long as Ubisoft takes the necessary precautions to balance them out, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I truly do believe that one of the reasons why Rainbow Six Siege has been so successful and has grown to the point that it is today is because Ubisoft has given us these continuous updates and bringing us new operators. And so we have to weigh the pros and cons. Do we want them to only bring us simplistic or no operators at all in the future because it could potentially disrupt the balance of the game? Or do we want them to continue bringing us more of that content, which is one of the reasons why why people love and continue to play the game to this day. I have a suspicion that many would get bored of Siege and move on to other things if it didn't get these kind of updates. And so we kind of have to weigh the pros and cons, but I do absolutely see where you're coming from. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Monday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Have you been enjoying Rage 2? Do you think that it's worth it right now? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until next time, guys, have a good one and take it easy.